You're watching Daybreak on this 11th day of October 2022. My name is Sam Gituko, and I want to introduce the panelists that we have here in studio. I have Eric Gumbi from the EACC. He does a lot of work there, including communication, and he'll be telling us more about what he thinks about the vetting process of CSs. We also have Beatrice Elachi, who is the Member of Parliament for Dagoretti North. You're happy this morning?
Yes, good morning, sir.
Morning, good to see you.
Kenyans.
Great. Nelson Koech is the Member of Parliament for Belgut constituency in Kericho County. Good morning.
Morning, Sam.
Welcome back to the show. And Diana Gishengo is the campaigns manager at Amnesty International. Good morning, Diana.
Morning, sir.
I haven't hosted you before.
No, you haven't.
Good to see you here on Daybreak. And we want to have a conversation about the vetting of CSs and, of course, PSs thereafter. And there are several other nominees, some to the cabinet level. We'll be talking about that later on. But first, let's take a look at some of the stories making headlines on the dailies. On the front page of the Daily Nation, pay cuts loom in Ruto budget plan. They're talking about the 300 billion shillings statement by William Ruto, saying that they need to cut this from the current financial year 2022-2023 budget that was to the tune of 3.3 billion shillings. They're looking at where to get it. Then the Daily Nation has given an analysis of what they term as non-essential spending of the financial year 2021-2022, or the financial year that ended June 30th of this year. So looking at where that could be, a bit of expenditure on travel, hospitality, training, contracting professional services, contracted guards and cleaning services, billions of money there. Then lobby wants Musheru sent to jail for contempt. Civil rights groups warned, or the group wants outgoing CS for ICT jailed for allegedly disobeying a court order on the appointment of ICT authorities chief executive officer, and so much more you'll find there. On the front page of the Standard, hustlers miss out on Ruto's 30-day boon, whereas friends and loyal politicians have been rewarded by appointments from the legislature to the executive. 30 days down the line, Mwananchi is still experiencing tough times. Drought is ravaging the country. Fuel prices are at an all-time high, and cost of living just got worse. It is exactly 4 weeks since President William Ruto became president. And so much has happened. Some policy pronouncements from the question of genetically modified organisms being allowed for cultivation and importation into the country, to the tune of lifting the subsidy on fuel, and so many other pronouncements that have come from the president. Let's start by looking at how that has been. Nelson Koech, you are here first, so let me start with you. What would you say is your assessment of President William Ruto's 4 weeks that you've seen some of the policy pronouncements, a bit of foreign travel to about 4 countries, 3 of them on official visit, one of them being the US, actually more than that, because he was also in the UK for the funeral. What did you say it has been?
I think so far, I will say so good, particularly where you've said that there's a feeling that hustlers have been left out after 30 days. I think fertilizer subsidy is not something that we'll expect that we will see the results immediately. It will take a few more days or even months for us to feel the impact of that subsidy of fertilizer, because it will end up on production of food and many other things. And like we were saying, even before we came live off the cuff when we were engaging, I told you that it's very difficult also for the president that you have the previous government's cabinet and your current cabinet. It's such a very difficult mix. People still see the same old faces. And even just that alone makes it look like there isn't much that has been done. But looking at what the president has been able to achieve with the travels, I've seen a lot of engagements. One is, like I saw yesterday, is the gas supply from Tanzania. That is where the government, as I think, is going to engage in. It's something that Kenya should be aware of. It's something very interesting, that shortly we shall be getting gas all the way from Tanzania. It is something that was there. It has been, I think now it's been signed, and shortly we should get even cheaper supply of gas when the pipeline is finally done. I've seen the engagements in Uganda, engagements in the U.S., and all this, particularly in the U.S. Defense, which has been, I know many people will not know, but there was an engagement on border securitization. Shortly, our Kenyan military will be moving from Somali into our territory, and the American government is going to be hugely involved in securing our borders. I'm told they gave us a grant of almost $20 billion to do a program on our border securitization. Mm-hmm. So there's been big engagement out there, and I think it's the president has achieved some of them. But then again, most of these things, we won't realize them yet until we fully constitute a cabinet, and now line ministers can engage directly. For the hustlers, they will probably have to wait a little bit longer to feel the impact of our new government.
It wasn't supposed to take that long.
Come on, Sam, 30 days, you're still operating with an old administration. There was a huge mess, like the Deputy President has been saying. We inherited a huge mess. Like Elijah had mentioned before, you don't have to mention it anymore. You get down and do the work. So there is so much that is being done.
Honorable Coach, there were some promises on day one.
Day one it was done. I mean, it was the day one, the president had said, day one in office, he's going to appoint the Court of Appeal judges. He did it, day one. Actually, that afternoon.
High Court.
The High Court, yeah. That afternoon he did it. These are the things that are long term. You can't tell me today that you will start feeling the impact of fertilizer subsidy immediately. Mm-hmm. It will take a few.
But on the question of appointments, I mean, the people you refer to as hustlers, it is quite an ambitious expectation that it would be one of them, or how do you reconcile that so that tutatengeneza serikali?
Most of the things will need even parliamentary approval. Hustler fund, for instance.
No, I'm asking, serikali ya kila mtu ya hustlers, tutakuwa kwa serikali pamoja.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that.
How will that be done?
It doesn't mean that all the 40 million plus hustlers will be in government. It means that you will feel the impact of the government in terms of housing development, in terms of fertilizer subsidy. People can now farm, and hustlers can get to do what they want to do without necessarily being harassed. You've seen how we are trying to find a way of having the hawkers do their job in a decent manner. So all these hustlers, what we are saying is that they will have space in the new government when we have proposal and legislatives targeted towards hustlers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Honorable Elachi, you've been there when the first Jubilee administration was being established in 2013. How does it compare when you're looking at the performance of this new administration? Yet, yes, we know that they are yet to get the men and women that who work with the president and the deputy in terms of the cabinet and the principal secretaries, but how would you say has been the 28 days?
Well, thank you, Sam. First of all, let me not go into 20 days or anything. I had told myself I will give the new administration 3 months, which gets you to 100 days, and just see a progress of what they have done. Mm-hmm. But since they are the ones who really promised everything in terms of how they will do it, the best I can say today is, one, you see, this is a government that is still in a government that was a government. Since 2013, me and Koech, we know we were in government, and we are still there, by the way. Uh-huh. Yeah. So one of the things I would wish they can do different is, one, let us now come out of telling Kenyans every Sunday how things are bad. This was a government that promised us to come out of the book of lamentation as Kenyans and now move into a book of Joshua where you do action. And we are waiting for that. And so it is not fair for them, the same team that used to abuse Uhuru and say, Uhuru keeps on crying, Uhuru keeps on telling this, now they have started the same game. Kenyans won't like that. Kenyans would want to see a few steps. Mm-hmm. As you move on, come out and give them just achievements, just the way Mheshimiwa Koech said. Tell Kenyans that on a Sunday, that we have started with this and this. Number two, when I look at now where we are headed, they agreed to remove subsidy on flour, on fuel so that things move. Now, you can't bring in again, after we have saved, they told us 144 billion. A few people were taking 144 billion. Can you imagine, already we have saved that. So even the 300 billion, I'm wondering. Well, Kenyans agreed to save it from the subsidies we removed. So you can't come and tell again you're cutting budget. Already we have given you a better way of getting the money. What we needed now to have been told is that from the time we removed subsidies from Kenyans' flour and Kenya and fuel, we have been able to save this. And this is how now the country will move to get this and this. The third thing now is that, having said all that, it is important for also Kenyans to know and to take it in their heart that Kenyans, can we come out from huge expectations that you expect and all of us go down there and do something small? What we want to see now the government do, if it is the Hustler Fund, that would have been our first priority to give Kenyans, so that when you are talking about your bottom, you have something you are giving them. And therefore, for me, the best the government has to do, we have Uwezo Fund. If you feel the regulations that you are bringing again as Hustler Fund are going to be the same as Uwezo, why can't we just combine this thing? I don't know whether you want to call it the Hustler Fund. Fine. And we move because the structures are already there. Kenyans won't wait for long. You will just amend.
But Honorable Elachi, the promise was different. It was actually given a figure, 50 billion shillings.
Exactly. That's why it's not, by the way, in terms of implementation, that's why you don't overlap and don't reinvent a wheel when the wheels are already there. Because it's a government that proceeds within. That's why when Uhuru came into power, he ensured everything Kibaki did has to move on. They said, you can't tell me you'll remove this one. All you do, you enhance to a better.
Okay.
Maybe you feel this one didn't work better, but it's the only way you can now start making Kenyans feel, indeed, there is a fund, there is something they can move on. But if you say you wait until you come with the fund, until now you start your regulations, I mean, Kenyans will see this fund in April next year. So why can't you just use the system that is there, a fund that is there that works very well, and Mheshimiwa knows it has worked for many, but then change the regulations to suit what you want to achieve when you're giving the hustlers.
Well, of course, the president told Parliament when he was opening it that he'll be introducing, or his administration will be introducing legislation to make that happen. Diana, for you, as you watch this, what is it that we need to be wary of? Because forming a government takes time, and it's been a month. We are told that Parliament will have until 3rd of November to vet CSs, so it could be another month, so close to 2 months before the administration is fully set. But what is your assessment of all these factors versus what the administration promised during the campaign and what they've been able to deliver so far?
Thank you very much, Sam. I think in the first week, the Kenya Kwanza government was able to really excite all of us. They did very well in the appointment of Court of Appeal judges, day one. Miguna is now about to come back home, which is really a way of restoring faith in the Constitution, the rule of law, or the judicial pronouncements that had been made, and the fact that citizenship of origin by birth for Kenyans should never be lost. So those are moments that we've been really proud. I don't even think the Kenya Kwanza government has veered the cabinet appointments. I think the government is clearly displaying what hustlers are. The appointments, I think, is very calculated, and maybe we did not understand, but those are the vision carriers for the hustlers in Kenya. But based on the other...
How do you make the deduction?
This government was prepared. They have been in power before. They promised they will have hustlers on board. Okay? They have given us 22 names, plus 2 advisors. Okay? very, very clear on what they want, the base they want for bottom-up, to ensure that hustlers, who are now, I think, all Kenyans, thrive. Okay? So in the Kenya Kwanza calculation, the hustler who will lead us in terms of defense is Honorable Duale. And I'm sure he has credentials for that.
What in your view is the definition of a hustler?
I'll use what Kenya Kwanza used, okay? It means people who worked very hard to make it in life, which is all of us. So allow me to proceed with that particular definition. People may have misunderstood, but hustlers at the top already, okay? So those are hustlers, and they've been rightfully appointed to those positions. Now, definitely, and Honorable Elachi would know we've been at it, the 2/3 gender role. But President Ruto promised that we are going to get 50-50, like your panel here, Sam. You see, we look very good. So the appointment came, and out of cabinet is 25.
22.
Is 22, 24 actually, right? 24. Because it's the president, the deputy, 22 cabinet secretaries, and the AG, 25. So not more than 2/3 should put us at 9. The president has appointed 7. So he promised parity. There, he has veered completely from the constitution and gone
The promise was 50%.
It was 50%, but then, you know, there's campaign promises and there's the constitution. So I choose to be grounded on the constitution. It's okay. We can let go of the 50-50 for now, and let's remain where the constitution has told us. So we expected at least 9 names of men. It could have been 9 men and 9 minus 22.
13.
No, the 9 men would have included the president and the deputy president. So 7 minus 22. 15 women. It could have been 15 women, 7 men. But for now, we have what we have. So that is one of the areas of disappointment. And I think working with the women's rights movement and where the president comes from is an area where women have already shown they are ready and capable of leadership. So that's an area of disappointment, and we are looking forward to Parliament ensuring that this time round we do not have to go to court to enforce constitutional provision or not more than 2/3 gender rule in cabinet. It already looks very bad because there are very, very many able leaders in this country who are men and women, and I think we should try as much as possible to remain within the guidelines of the Constitution.
Okay.
And then secondly, in the appointments, particularly to...
Don't worry, we'll get to the appointments later. But I want to hear from you, Eric. Now, this is not easy for you, I'm sure. But anyway, you can tell me about what has changed within the justice and criminal justice sector in terms of when you're dealing with the issues of graft investigations. Of course, you've had some pronouncements from the Deputy President on what he thinks about the DCI. But what has changed, even as you work with the new administration?
One of the things that we must admit is that for this government to deliver on the promises that have been made to Kenyans, it must effectively tackle the challenge of corruption, because corruption remains an obstacle to the economy of the Republic, and the government has come out clearly that they want to revive the economy. So at the center of that endeavor is to reduce wastage in government, to strengthen institutions that fight corruption, because it is those institutions that will assist in sealing the loopholes that allow preference of public resources. So there's a lot to do, and we can give them some time, because I know some of the initiatives that are required to fight corruption will need Parliament to have committees in place. So there are a number of things that we expect to be done. We expect institutions to be given resources. And if you have followed what has been happening in the last 4 or 5 months, you will notice that a lot of money is getting lost in our county governments. if you look at the amounts that EACC is recovering, it tells you that if the government could strengthen the fight against corruption, then we could even realize the amount that we want to be able to deliver to Kenyans. I'm talking about the government because the fight against corruption is not the responsibility of EACC or the DPP alone. It is a responsibility for all of us, and there are key things that ought to be done by that government, starting from the very top. We expect the presidency to rally his troops in parliament to strengthen the laws that we use. We expect all the other stakeholders to come together. So that national conversation is important, because until and unless we do that, then corruption could make it difficult for the government to
But let me ask you this. How does your work change because of regime change?
I think the Commission continues to discharge its functions. We have not seen any issue of concern. What we expect is a revamped war against corruption, because every regime has its own strategies of doing its part. But in respect to the Commission, what the Commission is supposed to do is already stipulated in the law. Okay. Our work is cut out. It is there in the Constitution, the various statutes. So what we need is for the government to do its part. And that one is also clear in the law. So if each party does their part, then we expect to mitigate the challenge of corruption. And again, Sam, we must also admit that a lot of work has been done in that area. But again, a lot remains to be done.
Okay, all right. Nelson, I don't know if you want to go at it, or what Diana was talking about, her definition of hustlers and what you're seeing from the appointments.
Sorry, what did you say? No,
I'm asking whether you want to go at what she was talking about, the hustlers in cabinet, the definition, her definition versus what may have been the definition on the trail, Mama Mboga, Boda Boda. And the like.
She was,
how do you reconcile that? So that
she was very right on her mention of hustler. The people who really wake up early to work hard, like many of us, like she did say. But you must realize that when President was saying that hustlers will be on the table, there are many initiatives on that front that he's actually made in the last 20 days. Number one, he's halved the Fuliza charges. He's made drastic changes on the Fuliza charges by 50%. That really is helping the hustlers. I think that is where I was saying he will bring hustlers on the table. It is a key thing. Even before last Parliament, I introduced a bill, Credit Financing, Micromanagement Financing Act, which was meant to deal on how online platform and lending is supposed to be done. Many people have become captive of online lending, and one of them is Fuliza. They should also find a way, because it's actually stealing from people who hardly have anything, and putting it in a company that is already having...
No, I'm not sure whether what you're saying is fair to the businesses, the companies that are behind Fuliza.
You will see shortly.
But also, is it the president or the industry was already thinking about it? Because he was invited to officiate that event.
There were so many things that worked behind the scene, Sam. You think they will have wanted to do that? They will have done it way back. They've made so much profit from that Fuliza. But I'm saying that is one of the things that is geared toward bringing the hustler onto the table. There are many other legislative proposals that the president has that, this is, I think, our second week in Parliament, that I think we'll work on. If you listen very keenly to his inaugural speech in Parliament, there is so much that he mentioned that is geared on doing towards helping the hustlers.
Okay, all right. We'll talk about this more after the break. We'll be speaking about the process of vetting the cabinet nominees, from the 22 CS nominees to the Attorney General, the Secretary to the Cabinet, and of course there are two other nominations that were made, although they sounded like appointments. That is for the advisors on security, national security, and the other on matters gender. After the break, stay tuned.